Okay, guys, so I'm going to show you how to work with gradients with your poster. So for the background, you need to fill that with a color or a pattern or a texture or gradient. And to do that, you're going to use your rectangle shape tool, and you're going to simply draw a rectangle that covers the artboard. And you can either make it a solid color, like if you want a black poster, or a any color that you want to fill that with. Or you could fill it with a gradient. So to find the gradients, you're going to go up to the top where it says window, and you're going to come all the way down to swatch libraries. It's at the very, very bottom. From swatch libraries, you're going to choose gradients, and then you'll see a long list appear here. There's actually more. It gets cut off below that you can't see. So I have sky opened right now. There's also water, wood, metals. I use metals a lot. Let's open that one. And every time you open another gradient panel, it will show up here. And you can see I have metals and I also have sky. So each of these are pre-made gradients. And as I click on them, it changes to match the gradient inside the rectangle shape that I just drew. So you can see these are the sky ones. Now, if you want to change the direction of the gradient, you're going to head over here to the gradient tool that's in the toolbar. It looks like a fading gradient and it says gradient tool. And when you click on it, you'll see this line. So right now our gradient's going horizontal. If we want it to go vertical, we can click at the top and drag it. If you hold shift, it will stay perfectly straight. And we can also change that by going from the bottom up. It's going to change the direction of that gradient. We could also do diagonals from the bottom up or the top down, or we could go across. So whatever gradient you're looking for. To tweak that gradient even further, you'll find your gradient panel, and that can be found under Window Gradient if it's not open already. And this allows you to actually go in and edit that gradient so you can make maybe more of the dark purple or less. Maybe you don't want the yellow, so you can remove that by pulling those off the line. Or you could add more pieces in. So let's say we wanted to add another color here. I could click underneath and then double click it, and I could change that color this way by kind of sliding these bars, or I could go in and manually pick any color I want from in here. So maybe I want that really, really dark purple to be up there. So you can tweak your gradient this way with the gradient panel, and you can change the direction of it with the gradient tool. Okay, depending on which way you want it to go. Let's see, a couple more things with type. So let's say we get some type here. I'm going to make this is not the font I want. So here's my text. Now, remember when we're working with type and we want to turn it into gradients, we have to first put it into outlines. So because this is active type, you see it has a blue line underneath, we are going to copy and paste and keep a copy off to the side, because once we turn to outlines, there's no going back. So make sure you always make a duplicate and leave it off to the side in case you want to know what font it is, or you need to edit it or make changes. With this one, we're going to turn it to outlines. So we're going to go up here to the word type, and we're going to go create outlines. And this takes away the editing functions of the type and it turns it into a vector. So now it looks like it was traced with a pen tool. So again, you could fill your type just as you always would with solid colors if you want, or you can use gradients. So I'm going to open up the metals one now, and you can see I have gold, silver, brass, bronze. There's a lot of different options here. I'm going to go with this. I think this gold looks nice. Now you'll see that each of these letters have their own individual gradient bars. You can see that once I click on this gradient tool. But instead, let's click and hold and drag, and now the whole text, the whole words become one gradient. And you can play with the direction, whether you want it to go diagonally or maybe top and bottom. Actually, that one doesn't look good because that breakers is really dark. I think the diagonal looks good. Try that. Or maybe straight across. If it's not working the way you like it, like if you want the R and S to be a little bit lighter, you can go in and fine tune it with this. Maybe we get rid of that one. And we can slide these around to change where the highlights are. So I think that looks pretty good. So that could be our gold gradient fill. And then the last thing you can add to type, if you'd like, is you could add a drop shadow. So if we click and hold on those pieces of type and we come up to effect. It's the first stylize, and the first choice under that is drop shadow. There are two stylizes, so there's another one down here. Make sure you're choosing the first one and you'll see drop shadow. You'll see this window pop open, and I like to hit preview so I can see what it looks like. Why is that not letting me hit it? There we go. And you could see how it added the drop shadow on the text. So here it is without. Nope, it's not going to show me without. Oh, hit OK. So there it is with the drop shadow. You can see what that looks like there. So not all text needs drop shadow, but it's a nice thing to add if you want to. And same with the gradient. It just gives it a little bit more depth. It's not so flat. There's actually skin tone gradients. So if you are drawing a face, you can go up to Window, Swatch Libraries, Gradients, and I believe there's skin tones right here. You'll see that one open. So here's all skin tone gradients. So if you are tracing a face or something, that's something else you can find in there. And I think that's it for gradients. So we've got 3 things to remember with gradients. You've got your gradient library, and that's under Swatch Library, Window, Swatch Libraries, and then gradients. And then you can choose anything in here that you might need. Once you do that, you're going to pop open the gradient libraries, and they'll come in here on this little pop-up. We also have the gradient tool, which changes the direction. We have to have something selected first, so black arrow. Then we can use the gradient tool and change the direction of that. Right? Remember to hold shift if you want it to be perfectly straight or perfectly vertical. And then we also have the gradient pop out, which is found under Window Gradient. And this is how you can control the gradient and really customize it to your liking. One more option with gradients, it comes in linear and radial. So far, I've only shown you linear. Radial is the same concept, but now it's radiating from a central focal point. So when you drag, you'll see this circle appear, and this gives you that kind of effect. So it does always come out from the center. So if you wanted to flip that, like if I wanted the glow to be on the inside, I would move all these points and swap them. So I would say, all right, let's send all these dark ones to the left and the light ones, or sorry, to the right. I don't know my left and right. And now we get this kind of glow from the middle. We might actually want to add another one. I'm going to add a brighter color in there. Maybe get rid of some of these and really work on that glow. There, that looks cool. Maybe get rid of this dark one. So you can really customize these gradients to anything that you like. And come on, we'll go a little bit more. There we go. So now that could be, you know, your background. Maybe that's a sun. Maybe you're going to put a character here, and this is going to be the glow that comes from behind them. But up to you. I really prefer linear gradients, but you're welcome to try radial. The drop down is right here. I just like the look of linear better, but totally up to you. Sometimes you do need a radial gradient. Like if you're doing, for me at least in jewelry design, if you were doing a stud, let's say that was going to be like a metal stud, we would use a radial gradient. And then if you could imagine that could look like, you know, if you put them together, like the chain of a necklace or a like a stud that might be pressed into denim or leather or something like that. So radial does have a purpose. I just think linear is a lot more easier to work with. And then the reason you always want to keep that text off to the side is because now if we already did this with the gradient and we have the drop shadow on it, if we're like, I'm not really into that, we can always copy and paste a new version, turn it to outlines, create outlines, and then fill it with a new gradient or with a new color. Right, let's try a different one. Let's try that one. And then again, each letter is its own gradient, but to put them all together, you just use that gradient tool and let them all work together like that. So that's kind of cool. The shorter your gradient line here, the more condensed your gradient will be. You can see that's getting all those colors into one. If you stretch it out really far, you're going to have a much less colors appearing. Maybe we'll put the breakers in the dark one. That's cool. Let's see how that looks. Cool. And you can play with that as well. You can also use the drop shadow even if you're not doing a gradient. So let's say we just have white text, keep it kind of simple here. Say we just have white text and we just want to drop shadow. So we're going to go Effect, Stylize, Drop Shadow, and Preview, and OK. And you can see the difference there between the more flat look and the drop shadow look. So there you go. There's your options. Drop shadow and flat. All right, so that's it for gradients, outlining type, and working with gradients in type. Remember, gradients won't work in your fonts unless they're turned to outlines. So always keep a copy off to the side. All right, good luck, guys.